I came across this article on LinkedIn and I think it's a fascinating read. It's called Context is Everything, What AI Hyper-Personalization Teaches Us. And they ran this experiment across 3 different groups, and I'm going to walk you through the outcomes. But they actually found that in one group that had not had any hyper-personalization before, their average donation increased from $2 to $18.60. So you can see that there's something really special about messaging people in a way that they feel heard, that they feel seen, that they feel valued. And AI is an incredible tool to actually help us do this. Now, I've put this article into TL Draw so we can have a nice visualization of this. But before we jump into this, let's step back, because it's really important to ensure that you have an AI policy. That when you work with AI in this manner, where we are using data about previous donations and previous donors, it is done in a safe and respectful way. You potentially would be anonymizing this data or not providing people's full names so that the AI can actually work with it and provide you these outcomes without necessarily providing confidential information through an AI platform. So ensure you have an AI policy, ensure that this does sit within that framework as what is allowed. So as I said, there was 3 types of experiments that they run. The first was on a developing country, and this was a group that had never had hyper-personalized communication. And we're going to see an example of what this looks like in a bit, but we saw an increase from $2 to $18.60 in their donation. Pretty incredible. The second group had already been getting personalized emails, but they were manually doing this through Outlook. They actually then shifted to AI. They didn't find any increase in the value that people were donating, but it saved them a lot of time. So it was still a valuable experience because instead of manually typing out this email, they had AI actually draft that for them. They proofread it, and this saved them a lot of time while still receiving this increase in donations. And then Market C was a group that actually did this in-house. They were specifically focusing on the Spanish language. They had local expertise. And this is something I often encourage organizations to really invest in. Train your staff to actually have these skills, because no one is going to know your organization as well as someone inside of it. Consultants are incredibly valuable. They can come with lots of different knowledge and frameworks, but ultimately that knowledge embedded into your organization through internal staff, you can see here, had a 35% increase in the amount of donations that came through because they were able to apply their own knowledge through the AI system as well. So let's frame out and let's actually look at what is this hyper-personalization. Now, this is quite a generic personalization that we have over here. Thank you for your generosity in the past year. Because of donors like you, we've been able to continue our efforts to alleviate hunger in Sudan. Okay, this is very common in a fundraising email. This is what has been termed as personalization for a long time. Just including something like the person's name, dear first name, is what we recognize as personalization. But people know that that is not personalized to them. They know that this is mass email communication. So how can we actually take this one step further and use AI to personalize this? And here's an example that came from this article. It said, your generosity in the past year with a remarkable total of £1,280 across 3 donations has placed you in the top 10% of donors in Buenos Aires and contributed to treating 430 children with severe acute malnutrition in Sudan. Your £300 donation for our nut bar appeal made you a cornerstone of our efforts. Now, hopefully you can see just how different that is. We've got this kind of like generic personalization, and then we have this hyper-personalization. And I like this term hyper-personalization because it's a reflection only of that specific person. Not everyone is going to get this donation because not everyone donated that specific amount across those different donations, and they're in the top percent and from this country. But it's actually showing the donor what impact their donation had. And this makes people feel heard. It makes them feel seen. It makes them feel valued. And that is what we are trying to do in fundraising. We are trying to develop relationships and connections with people. And that can be really hard when we're doing this at scale. But through this hyper-personalization, we can actually achieve that, and the results speak for themselves. You can see that the increase in donations is there because people actually develop that relationship. So a few takeaways for us to reflect on. Context matters. This is only going to work based on the data that you have in your system. So ensure that you are cleaning your data, that you are deduplicating. I know how painful that is. But without clean data, you're going to be potentially sending people incorrect information, which is probably even worse than sending them nothing at all. So it's really important to have that data ready. Again, the AI isn't magic. If you give it bad data, it's going to give you bad output. So we really want to ensure that we are using well-structured prompting, good frameworks, good instructions to the AI, and clean data. And last but not least, in-house is always going to be better. Bring in consultants to help explain and train your team on how to do this. But once they have the skills and the knowledge, actually empower them to run with this, because they know your organization better than anyone else, and they will be able to actually take this to the next level. This is a lovely quote that I think we can end with. You can get some pretty magical results with the right data foundation and prompts. A lot of people are saying prompting isn't important anymore. Context is the most important thing, and context is vitally important, but prompts are equally as important. If we cannot clearly explain to the AI what we are trying to do, we will get generic or incorrect outputs. So this is a combination of both skills, context engineering and prompt engineering. But when they come together in this type of manner, the results speak for themselves. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments below. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in the next video.